Hello and welcome to another tip of the week. This time we're going to be talking about artillery. Right, let's start things off with, let's go through every single faction's artillery unit. Here we have the Austere. The Austere have the LEFH 18 artillery howitzer. They have the mortar half-track. They have the Panzerwerfer. They also have the standard mortar team, and they also have the artillery officer that can drop down arty or use a coordinated fire ability so that all these artillery units can fire in unison. And I'll show you a very nice tip with the Panzerwerfer later on with that ability. Next, let's talk about the OKW units. So here we only have the League and the Stuka. Next, we'll go over to the British forces over here. British forces have the mortar emplacement, the Sexton, and now a new unit, the Land Mattress, which came out fairly recently. Now we'll switch over here to the American forces. We have the Calliope. We have the Pack Howie, we have the mortar carriage, the howitzer mortar carriage unit, and we have the Priest. And over here we have the Soviet units which can use artillery. So we have the standard 2 mortars, the 120mm mortar, and over here the 82mm mortar squad. We have the Su-76 and the Ziz gun. Both of these have the exact same artillery barrage. The 76 version is free, whereas the Ziz gun costs 60 munitions. So bear that in mind. Over here we have the ML20 152mm gun howitzer, we have the Katusha, and we have the B4 howitzer over here as well. Okay, now I'm going to illustrate how sandbags can be used to act as an extra layer of defence against possibly a tank flank in to try and take it out. So here we have 2 B4s, one with the sandbags around it, one with not, and then we have 2 P4s up here with the same amount of veterancy that will now attack these B4s, and we'll see which one dies first. So here we have them both firing, and now let's just watch. See, as this P4 is hitting the sandbags first, and this P4 is just immediately wrecking this one over here. 2 hits have already landed, and this one over here has had to destroy the sandbags first before then getting some shots in on this this B4 over here. It's not even managed to land 1 hit yet. It should now be able to do so. But you get the idea. Okay, we'll now do the exact same thing with Austere LEFHs and with Volksgrenadier sandbags. This time, however, these sandbags do not do anything to help, help add an extra layer of defence, as you will now witness. We'll now have 1 ELFH with no sandbags, 1 with sandbags, and we have 2 EZ8 Shermans over here. So now, Glorious will now attack with these 2 Shermans, and we'll now see how this will play out.
HQ is under attack. Typical enemy trick is
As you can see, this Sherman shells are going straight over the sandbags and going right into that Austere LEFH. And they're both dead. And there you have it. Okay, so now I'm going to show you the importance of why you should always reverse and back away with your artillery units after you've fired. So now Glorious will fire upon these Volksgrenadiers and not move away afterwards. So here come the Katusha rounds, and now through the fog of war I can see where he's fired from. So now I'm going to counteract this by lobbing a Stuka barrage in this general direction. And because he's got plenty of time after firing that barrage to move away and get away from this counter barrage. But because he stayed there, the Katusha has now died. Right? So this is why you should always reverse, because you've always got plenty of time after you've fired with your artillery piece to then reverse it away. You know, if you're up against a SimCity Brit player that has the counter barrage ability on their howitzers, or just in general, if like you're an Austere opponent or Mortar over here has counter barrage activated, then you have to always move those artillery units, because these, as soon as you fired with an artillery piece, these artillery pieces will then begin to immediately fire upon where they've sighted that enemy artillery piece from. So this is why you need to move. You don't want these 25-pounders getting a free kill on your artillery piece just because you forgot to move it. Next part of the clip, I I will talk about why you should be listening through the fog of war to get a good idea of where enemy tanks are repairing. So if we listen through the fog of war right now, I've asked Glorious to repair some tanks, and I'm going to make a good estimate by listening where his tanks are. So if we listen very carefully and go down here, the noise is getting louder and louder, and it sounds like tanks are getting repaired in this vicinity over here. Because if we go right, the noise gets quieter. So I'm going to make a good estimate here and drop artillery in this location. And let's drop some over here as well, see if we can get a good line. Because we're listening through the fog of war, I'm making a good estimate of where his infantry is at. And look, there we go, look. His tanks were repairing there. And if I had caught him bar repairing, he would have lost the crews on those tanks easily, right? This is a good idea to listen. Always listen to the fog of war for repairs, because it gives you a good idea of where you can drop some artillery strikes in. Right, next, I want to talk about the importance of the Stuka, right? So the Stuka is an incredibly effective unit for getting rid of garrisoned units. It is almost guaranteed to wipe the entire building if the Stuka rounds hit it. So over here, I've asked Glorious to garrison these two houses, and I will now Stuka barrage them right now. Here we go. So we're going to get this Stuka barrage to come in. Here we go. We're going to just turn the fog of war off as well, so you can get an idea. And here comes the Stuka rounds. That house has been destroyed, and that house has also been destroyed. And he's just lost both units, and that was a very effective barrage, right? So we'll now do the exact same thing against an infantry squad in the left-hand side house. So whenever you hear a Stuka firing and you've got a squad in a house, you immediately need to think, right, which house does he know that I've got a unit in? I should evacuate it immediately. And to do that, you press tab. So you click on the house, you press tab, and then you right-click outside the door that you want to exit, and then you will exit out the building. Now, if you're an Axis player and you know that your person is quick on his micro and will exit the building, you should then get your Stuka or whatever artillery piece to fire on the door's retreat path as well. So I will now fire on this house and also fire on its retreat path as well. So here we go, the Stuka will fire. Glorious will now hear it and try and evacuate. But fortunately for him, he got out the right door and managed to evacuate it just in time. And that is what you probably should do, because you need to be anticipating what your opponent is going to be doing. Is your opponent someone who's going to hear the Stuka barrage and immediately retreat? Or is your opponent somebody that might go, alright, he's going to Stuka here and he might Stuka on my retreat point, so maybe I should exit the door that he's not expecting and go to and try and quickly move over to the right hand side. So when you're up against somebody and you use artillery against them, you need to evaluate what kind of person they are. Are they someone that retreats straight away when they hear it? Are they someone that tries to dodge it? And if they are someone that tries to dodge it, which way do they dodge? They always dodge the right hand side? They always dodge the left? Are they unpredictable? They're the worst type of people to deal with when you're using artillery against them. Somebody that you can't really read what they're going to do. Because if they dodge the right, then you try and Stuka them to the right hand side. They might go to the left, then you might go, oh no, I've just wasted my artillery strike again. So whenever you're up against artillery, you need to be that person. You need to be unpredictable. Okay, we're now going to illustrate how to use arty on retreating troops. So if you're up against somebody, that type of player that retreats when they see an enemy unit straight away, or is scared. So here's the blob. He's now going to retreat backwards, and I'm going to predict his retreat path to be right here. So I'm going to fire my Panzerwerfer on his retreat path and hope that I might be able to get some nice hits in here. So we'll find out. There we go. And I managed to do quite a bit of damage to that blob there by anticipating his retreat path. Now, this is why it's important on every map to know what the general retreat paths of units, because this way you can then predict when to use your artillery against them, right? The next thing I'm going to talk about is shot blockers, especially these big hedgerows. So right here we have one of these infamous tall tree, hedgerow, shot blocking things that are impenetrable to most units apart from the Jagdtiger, I think. So, right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to fire this Panzerwerfer at this enemy units down here, right? So we're going to fire this Panzerwerfer. But unfortunately, because I fired way too close to this hedgerow, some of those shots have not hit their target. Where if I had moved back a little bit and then fired up, all of those shots would have landed, right? So this is why you should always be very careful when you try and fire your artillery unit near a hedge, because more than likely, especially like a Stuka barrage as well, their shots will hit this tree line rather than your enemy units, and then you've just wasted your barrage ability, which could be the difference between winning and losing a game, because you might need that barrage to hit to come back into the game to get your cutoff back, right? So you always need to be cautious, especially on a map like on Road to Kharkov, where you have those big tree blocking hedgerows outside the cutoffs. Be very careful when you fire your artillery pieces around those. Okay, I'll now show you the importance of why, if you think an artillery barrage is coming, maybe it's a good idea, instead of retreating, to clump up or to get near to these hedgerows, because if a Stuka, especially against a Stuka barrage, right, Stuka shells are very likely to hit the hedgerow rather than your infantry, because these are so tall and in the way that because the Stuka shells are angled, when they land, they will be hitting that hedgerow rather than your infantry squad. So now I'll demonstrate this by artillerying down this direction here. There we go. So here we go. Here comes the Stuka barrages. And here come the shells. There you go. 3 of those shells hit that hedgerow up there. Hit these trees up here. And these squads that are really close to this hedge didn't get hit at all. So this is why, especially against these really tall trees, you should try and clump up, very close to them if you think he's going to fire in a certain direction. Because these trees and this hedgerow will save your unit's lives. Right, next we're going to be talking about when and why you should drop artillery in a certain location. Okay, so right here we have a German fortified position, okay? And you want to drop artillery on it because you have enough resources. But where should you land it? Should you land it on top of him, like here? No, is the answer to that question. Because why? There's no other engagement happening on in the field. He can see this clear as day if he's awake, and he can easily reverse out of it before getting killed, right before the first shell lands. The best place to land artillery is slightly behind him, right? Because if you land it slightly behind him, he has to reverse through it for longer, and meaning it's more chance for the shot to land and actually do some damage. Also, if you land it behind him instead of, behind him, he's either have to move forward or he's going to have to retreat through it, right? And if he goes forward, he's going to be going into you and out of position, right? So if I drop artillery behind me, like here, I don't want to reverse into it, because I know I'm going to have, the artillery is going to land over here. So I'm going to have to reposition and move forward, right? And now my pack's repositioned, and I have to get out of the way just in time. As I reposition, then's the time to move in with your armor, right? As I try and reposition my pack, right? That's the perfect time then to move it. Again, same thing again. I'm trying to reposition, and the artillery's coming in from Glorious there. I'm going to have to slowly move out of the way, right? Because if I retreat, my guys are going to have to run through it, and they're going to run through it really slowly, and they're going to take a lot of damage on the way back there, right? Now we're going to be doing distractions, right? If you remember, in my game against Cruz in the monthly ESL finals, I used artillery as a distraction, and then with my 2-2 I managed to take out his Katusha. We're going to do the exact same thing again here, and we're going to make it very obvious to you. So here we go. So here's the Grenadier, the only engagement happening on the field, so I'm going to make sure that he knows about this by moving in here. So you can see my my Grenadier moving in. He's going to start firing on me, so he knows that I'm there, and I'm going to drop artillery on him right now. Now the flares are coming in, and he's going to try and retreat out there right in time. So he's going to be busy trying to micro these units and get them out of cover here, right? And meanwhile, I sent my 2-2-2 round the side and quickly taken out his Katusha. Now he's noticed it, he's going to try and get away, but it's going to be way too late. And then even if I lose the 2-2, it'd be worth it being able to kill his Katusha, right? So, and then you can, and this was just a basic idea, right? So you could have had 2 distractions or maybe 3 distractions going on if you wanted to, right? So that was only 1, right? So the more against higher skilled players, you're going to need to do more and more distractions in order to pull this off, because higher skilled players are going to be able to keep tracks of what's going on in the field more often than lower skilled players, right? So this is why, if it gets higher skill players, you might want to do 2 distractions. You might want to drop Artie here, and you might want to flank round or attack the right-hand side VP with a P4 and some Volks, right? And all the while, this all being a big distraction for your 2-2 to come rushing around the side and taking out the Katusha. So there you go. So another tip that I forgot to mention with the artillery is the importance of the the austere artillery officer. This gentleman here has a fairly cheap 80 munition coordinated artillery barrage, right? So using this ability with no artillery pieces on the map is useless because it won't pay for itself, right? Because it's not an off-map ability. What it does do, however, is beat the cooldown times on Panzerwerfer barrages and the LEFH static emplacements as well. So what I'll do is I'll demonstrate this now. So here we have the Panzerwerfer, and I'll get him to fire on this enemy blob of Soviet units, right? So here comes the artillery fire. And as you can see, it's now going to be on cooldown. But then I'm going to immediately use the coordinated fire ability again and click on here. The officer has now located it. And now the Panzerwerfer is now firing yet again off the cooldown. And for 80 munitions, you have literally got yourself another artillery barrage, which could be very useful and save you in the nick of time if you needed to fire another artillery ability. Now imagine if you were playing a 2v2 and you bought 2 of these Panzerwerfers. You could have like Panzerwerfers firing literally every couple of minutes or so, or even less so, because when the Panzerwerfer gets to Vet 2, it has a really short cooldown time of about, I think, a minute. So I was tossing and ahhing about including the Sturmtiger in this video, but I decided to because he's kind of an artillery unit. So we are going to. The same thing with the AVRE as well. So both these tanks have kind of the same principle. But the thing with especially the Sturmtiger, you can hear it quite goddamn easily, right? It makes a very significant noise through the focal one. It has a very distinctive sound. So what you want to do with the Sturmtiger to get a good chance of getting a good kill with it, if you do decide to get one out, is to have him hidden behind a shot blocker, right, like I have over here with this house. So what's going to happen now is Glorious is going to flank round, and he's going to spot my MG42 in the open. Now I've purposely done this, and you could possibly lay this up as bait as well, because my MG's facing south, right, and the left-hand side is totally open, and this is, and therefore he's going to think, oh, I can easily flank round here without any trouble. Little does he know that my Sturmtiger is lying in wait to then wreck this blob as it comes now. So here comes the blob, and he's going to try and flank round here, and I'm going to get a good Sturmtiger shot off, hopefully. And there you go. Baited hard, then I can easily retreat out the way, and he's just lost 3 entire conscript squads, and he didn't even know the Sturmtiger was there. So you could do the same thing with the AVRE, have him camp behind, like here's the AVRE as well. Say if you had vision and an infantry squad has come around here, you lob the shell over the house, and boom. The units will die, and he will not even see he might hear the shell coming, but as soon as it's in the air, it's very difficult to dodge it, and if you time it correctly, you can even get him on retreat, and you can't even dodge it. So I think that wraps it up for the tips of for this tip session. I hope you found it useful, and a big thanks to my help Glorious for being very patient. This almost took 2 hours to do this tip session, as you can probably see the time at the top. So yeah, thank you very much, guys, and see you next week. Bye bye.